Is this the real reason behind the break-in? Why did Taehyung hide the warning? What made Jungkook completely speechless after hearing the confession? Before you read further, ask yourself right now, what if someone you trusted knew you were in danger, but chose to stay silent to protect you? If you're still here, press like, comment, and subscribe, because what you're about to read will make you question everything you thought you knew about Taehyung, about Jungkook, and about the night that changed everything. Now take a breath, because the deeper this story goes, the heavier it gets. People thought the break-in at Taehyung's house was simply a terrifying accident. A random crime that shook ARMY and sent panic across social media. A night that left fans sleepless, fearing for his safety. But if things were that simple, you would not be reading this right now. If there wasn't something darker buried beneath the silence, Taehyung wouldn't have chosen to speak at last, after weeks of protecting the truth with everything he had. Tonight, for the first time, Taehyung admitted something no one expected. A sentence so sharp that it froze Jungkook to the point he couldn't speak. The room turned quiet, the camera stopped recording, and everyone realized that nothing about that night was what the world assumed. It started with an interview that was supposed to be routine. A private conversation, gentle, warm, safe, until the interviewer softly asked if Taehyung had ever felt unsafe before the incident. The question wasn't meant to open Pandora's box, but it did. Taehyung paused. His shoulders lowered, his jaw clenched, his eyes dropped to the floor. Not like someone searching for memories, but like someone debating whether the truth deserved to be freed. When Taehyung spoke, his voice cracked. Not because he was afraid to speak, but because he was afraid of what would happen once the truth left his mouth. "I got a warning before the break-in," he said. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But it was enough to destroy the quiet in the room. Jungkook's reaction was immediate. His eyes lifted, eyebrows pulled together, breath stuck halfway in his throat. For a second he waited for Taehyung to continue. Like maybe he meant something else, something lighter, something less terrifying. But the silence that followed was too heavy to be misunderstood. Taehyung continued, "I didn't want anyone to worry, especially JK. So I kept it to myself." That was the moment Jungkook's disbelief turned into something else. Shock mixed with fear and a pain that he tried so hard to hide. He leaned forward and whispered, not out of anger but out of heartbreak, "Why didn't you tell me?" Taehyung's answer stabbed through every wall Jungkook tried to build. "Because I knew you would try to protect me, even if it meant putting yourself in danger. People always talk about loyalty. They admire friendship until they see the cost. This was the cost." Taehyung took the risk alone rather than let Jungkook burn with him. A warning had been sent. Someone told him that the break-in wasn't random. Someone hinted that he was being watched days before the crime. And he chose silence. Now imagine that. Imagine knowing something could happen to you and choosing to endure it alone because you'd rather be hurt than watch someone you love collapse under the weight of fear. That is not weakness. That is love that bleeds. Jungkook didn't take it well. He wasn't angry at Taehyung, but at the world that made him think silence was safer than trust. He looked away, blinking repeatedly, trying to stop the emotion from overflowing. Fans always saw Jungkook as the strong one, the protector, the one who takes hits without breaking. But nobody expected him to look like this, like someone who just realized he could have lost the person he cared about most without ever knowing the danger existed. The interviewer didn't dare interrupt. Neither did the staff. For the first time, no cameras mattered, only the truth between the two of them. Jungkook reached out, not to comfort Taehyung, but to anchor himself. His hand trembled against his knee. "You could have died," he said, voice shaking. "I should have known." Taehyung shook his head. "I couldn't let you carry it. You already carried too much." At that moment it became clear. The break-in wasn't the scariest part. The real terror was the silence that preceded it. Taehyung wasn't hiding because he didn't trust Jungkook, he was hiding because he trusted him too much. Once this interview goes public, and it will, the entire world will explode with theories, questions, and fear. Fans will reanalyze every photo, every live broadcast, every disappearance, every change in mood. They will look back on the days before the break-in and wonder if the warning signs had always been there, if the ones watching from outside had been inches away while nobody noticed. And while everyone debates what this confession means, one truth remains unshakable. Jungkook will never forgive himself for not seeing the danger. Taehyung will never forgive himself for staying silent. And the world will never forget the night everything almost ended. If you're still reading, then you feel what's coming. This story isn't over. This confession is only the beginning. So answer this at the end of the article. Do you think Taehyung made the right choice by protecting Jungkook through silence? Or should he have told him about the warning before it was too late? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like and subscribe if you want the next part, because the next revelation is darker than this one. If you believe Taehyung's confession was the climax, you were wrong. It was only the spark that ignited everything that followed. Because the moment those words left Taehyung's mouth, something inside Jungkook changed. The quiet shock became a storm, silent, controlled, but powerful enough to rearrange the atmosphere in the room. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't get angry. That would have been easier. Instead, Jungkook whispered something so soft that only Taehyung heard it, yet the pain inside it echoed loud enough to be felt by everyone watching. I was supposed to protect you. Taehyung didn't respond. Not because he didn't want to, but because no answer could soften what Jungkook felt. Guilt destroys differently. It doesn't yell. It sinks quietly, heavy, swallowing the air inside a room. The staff pretended to work. The camera operator lowered his hands like suddenly the equipment weighed 100 kilograms. The interviewer stared at her cue cards, trembling slightly as if they could shield her from the emotions suffocating the space. No one dared to move. No one dared to breathe too loudly. Taehyung eventually exhaled. You've protected me more than anyone ever has. I didn't want you to carry my fear on top of your own. That was supposed to comfort Jungkook, but it didn't. If anything, it broke him further. He blinked rapidly and looked upward as if the ceiling could catch the tears he didn't want to fall. Taehyung reached out first. His hand touched Jungkook's forearm. A subtle gesture. Gentle. But the way Jungkook flinched, not away from Taehyung but away from the pain, was devastating. I should have known, Jungkook whispered. I should have seen something was wrong. I should have felt it. Taehyung shook his head again. It wasn't your responsibility. But Jungkook looked him straight in the eye. For the first time that day, his voice wasn't shaking. It was. The room wasn't prepared for that sentence. Not even Taehyung. Because it wasn't said out of obligation, but out of devotion, raw and unfiltered. Jungkook wasn't trying to be a hero. He was grieving the idea that Taehyung had been scared and alone while he was laughing on stage, training, working, sleeping, living his normal life without knowing what danger lurked near the person he cared about most. The interviewer finally tried to continue, terrified but professional enough to break the silence. Taehyung, when you say warning, what exactly do you mean? Taehyung's jaw tightened. Something in his expression shifted, fear finally exposed. He swallowed, fingers curling into the edge of his chair. It wasn't anonymous. Those 3 words sent coldness through everyone in the room. Someone had sent the warning directly. Not a rumor. Not a random hateful message. Not the usual online noise celebrities deal with every day. Something or someone targeted him personally. Jungkook leaned forward, instinctively protective. You knew who sent it? The hesitation in Taehyung's eyes was answer enough. Jungkook's voice dropped to something darker, something unfamiliar. Calm but trembling with fury born from love, not rage. Who warned you? Taehyung didn't speak. Not yet. He forced a shaky breath and Jungkook didn't push him. Not because he wasn't desperate for an answer, but because he could see the tremor in Taehyung's hands. This wasn't a story Taehyung was holding back.